audiences would come out and they were just staring in sort of horror at what they'd just witnessed. And the first time I watched a cut of it, I was just like, I am going to lose my job over this. There is no two ways about it.
Thank you so much for coming in to do this. I thought speaking to a commissioner would be really interesting. Obviously, as a producer, you hold the keys to getting my stuff on telly. And I just thought people will be really fascinated to learn about, had you always known that that's what you wanted to do, where you started, how you ended up where you are, and I could listen to people's stories all day. So did you always want to get into the world of film and TV? Did you have a family who worked in the arts, or was this just like your passion, or did you fall into it? Like, was it an accident?
Thanks, Sam. It's really lovely to be here. I grew up in North Yorkshire. Neither of my parents were in the industry at all. I, went to state schools locally, and I think I was sort of, I knew that you wanted to talk about this. So I was really thinking about, like, where did it all come from? And I think as a really little kid, I just loved to read, and I just loved stories, and I love books, and I sort of think about those books now, and and I can see, I think of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I can just see it in my head, and I just used to disappear into them, and I used to escape, and it was like this. I had a little world that I lived in, full of books and stories, and I think it's, going through school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew this was a place I liked being, and actually, when I was at secondary school, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and so I chose like all sciences to do for what was some very old.
And did you pick that because you thought you had to have a proper job?
Well,
I'll get on to that.
Yeah, because actually working out why I picked it was kind of the key to me figuring out what I should be doing.
Yeah.
So I did all these sciences. I really wasn't very good at them, and I was really struggling. But I was like, no, I've said I'm going to be a doctor, so that's what I'm going to do. Had these two kind of inspirational English teachers. I feel like English teachers quite often are the kind of big personalities. And I had this amazing English teacher called Mrs. Surgener, and she was, always incredibly encouraging to me. And I went to her one day when I was, coming to, getting up to O-levels. I'm very old. I did O-levels. And I said, I don't know what to do, because I'm supposed to be doing all these sciences, but I really can't do them. I don't want to do. Yeah. And she was just like, it's simple. Just do English. Yeah. You can do it like you're falling off a log.
Yeah.
Just do English A-level. That's obvious. And I hadn't really thought about it. And suddenly it made sense. And I was like, yeah, of course that's what I should be doing.
God, she gave you that advice.
I know, thank God. Otherwise, God knows what would have happened to me. I'd still be struggling with physics now. And that made sense to me. And so I sort of went back to my first love in a way. Yeah. And it was actually not until quite a lot later that I realised why I'd wanted to be a doctor. Because as a kid, particularly as like a teenager, and I was quite a bit weird and didn't really fit in that well and a bit bullied. But I had a black and white television in my bedroom that my parents had sort of let me have. I wasn't really supposed to have it, but they sort of let me have it. And I just used to watch a lot of telly and a lot of films. And I remember Sunday afternoons watching black and white films on BBC Two. And actually, I think the doctor thing came from watching episodes of a really old medical show called Dr. Kildare, and these really old films called Doctor in the House with Dirk Bogart in. And I just think I remember reading those books as well and just loving them. Yeah. And so I actually think that the reason I thought I wanted to be a doctor was because of telly. So
it all comes back to telly.
It all comes back to telly. And then I did A-levels, and again I had an English teacher who went, you should be doing an English degree, of course you should be.
Yeah.
And I sort of didn't quite, I wasn't quite sure of myself, I wasn't that confident, but he sort of really pushed me. Yeah. And so I got a place at uni to do English. And again, it's always just been about stories for me, and I sort of just knew that I could see a story and I could start to look at all the different bits of the story, and I was really interested about how they were put together and what emotional impact words could have. I remember really clearly, probably in my second year of uni, There was a brilliant little sort of art cinema, and a group of, mates. Like, we're going to the cinema. It was like the late night screening, and I was probably a bit pissed, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll come to the cinema." I didn't know what we were seeing, and it was this film called Wings of Desire by a director called Wim Wenders, and it sort of was life changing. And I'm sure that part of that was to do with being a bit pissed and not having a clue what I was walking into.
Yeah.
But it was like one of the most sort of moving experiences of my life. And it was just nothing like anything I'd ever watched before.
Yeah.
And it sort of just felt like it spoke to me. And I just at that point went, okay, maybe this is what I really want to do. And then I came out of that degree, that university, and I was unbelievably lucky because it was the time when you got grants to go to uni, and you got maintenance grants, and you got tuition fees paid for. I've got kids at uni now, and it's not like that.
Yeah.
And I still wasn't really quite sure, like, even though I had this vague idea that I wanted to go and like do things with angels or something, I didn't really know how to do it. So, but I got a place, again, I slightly talked my way into a place on this course at Goldsmiths just for a year, which was like a postgrad course, and it was quite practical. You basically sort of chose your discipline, and it was communications, and then you chose which bit of that to go into. And I really wanted to go into the film bit, but I knew that was going to be really competitive. So I actually applied for the TV drama bit of it, and for me still, that love of television sat alongside that love of film, and I just didn't know very much about film. I'd never studied it. So I did this year at Goldsmiths, and what that taught me was I should never direct anything again. I directed a short film. It was awful.
Is there a link to the short film?
There is no, because it was pre-internet.
Damn it.
And there were physical copies that all got destroyed. So it taught me that I loved the physicality of it, but I'm not a technician, so I sort of, it was like trying to figure out where do I fit in all of this. Yeah. But I knew it was where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And it took me quite a long time. It took me like probably another 3 years or so to figure out that was even such a thing as script development.
Yeah.
And it was quite an early course, so you didn't have that much connection to the industry at the time. I think those courses have really changed now.
Yeah.
So I sort of got spat out the other side going, what do I do
with
now?
This? Yeah. I know what you mean. Like when I started as in the accounts department, I didn't know any of that. It was a chance meeting with a coordinator who was temping at the job that I had in Liverpool at the time. And I'm really nosy. Yeah. That's why we're here. And I'm like, tell me everything about you. And I think she was a prod sec or a production assistant on 51st State, which is filmed in Liverpool. Yeah. And I was like, well, that sounds like the most magical job in the world. Yeah. When obviously we know that they're layered in admin and it's really hard. But I just made her tell me everything about what she did. And then I was like, right, well, I work in the purchase ledger of an oil company. Like, how the hell am I meant to get a job in an industry like that? And she was like, well, we have accountants and we, and this is what they do. And she gave me a link to the knowledge online and was like, email all these guys, tell them you know me. Yeah. See what happens. And I got a job 6 months later.
Oh, amazing.
But I didn't know, that's not a credit that anybody looks at and thinks about that job. You know, people will look at the producer, the director, costume or makeup. Or, they wouldn't look down at the script developers or, because obviously you're further down and you've left the cinema or you've turned the TV over by then. Yeah. But it baffles me how many jobs that exist within the industry that unless you're in the industry, you wouldn't know you would never know.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's sort of matching your particular skills and finding that little door. Yeah.
There are a lot of transferable skills as well.
Totally.
Like mine was completely transferable because numbers are the same in every industry. There was just slightly different ways of doing things, but it was all the same, really.
Well, and that's what you learn, isn't it? That there are so many different routes through, and there are so many people come in from all sorts of different directions, and I think it's been my guiding principle. It's like what do I love, and where do I think if I have any kind of skill set, where is my skill set? And I think it keeps going back to those stories that I read as a kid, and like just being endlessly fascinated about how the stories are put together and how they make you feel and how they the joy, the excitement of, seeing a script change and evolve, or being in an edit and seeing how shifting a music cue makes everything different. I mean, and it's eternally fascinating to me.
It's never boring, because every job is so different and brings up so many new things that, you just didn't dream that you'd be sitting there. I remember I did a job for Lucasfilm, and I had like an hour meeting about Wookiee Fair. Never in my life did I think I would ever be having that conversation, but it was fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's sort of it's never the same thing twice, is it?
And then how come you went into script development, but you didn't write? You never, if you thought you couldn't direct, you just couldn't, you didn't fancy writing?
No, I never did. And I always felt like the things that I could do were to be a sort of second pair of eyes and to help grow and nurture. I mean, I did that thing where I was with quite a lot of education behind me, but absolutely no skills whatsoever. My dad made me go and learn to type, and then I sort of very, very gradually found little job. I managed to get, like, through a mate of a mate of a mate. I think my first job was sorting out some VHS tapes into a library, and there I heard about a job. So I went and worked for John Cleese's corporate video company for 6 months, where he brought all his comedian mates in to make little corporate videos about how to put up a spreadsheet together or something, and like Dawn French, whatever. I was a production secretary there for a few months, and then again through sort of a mate of a mate of a mate, I got a job in BBC picture publicity, and it was maternity leave, and I was basically in charge of, and this really long time ago, all the slides, because it wasn't internet, it was all physical, all the slides for Neighbours. So Neighbours was a big deal.
That was a really precious job you had there.
And basically I had to, like, every week you had, which episodes are coming up, and I had to send out my picture of Daphne or whoever it was, Mike, to TV Times. I put it in a little package, and so I sent it to TV Times and Radio Times and all the newspapers.
That's brilliant.
And but while I was there, the woman who looked after the dramas, I was like, can I come along, as when you're sort of running a photo shoot on a drama, and she used to let me read the scripts, and so I sort of started to learn about what scripts look like, and I was also, being in the BBC as well, I kind of started to learn about what jobs there were in the drama department. And then I applied for anything that was going, and I didn't get a single one. and my boss at the time took me aside and she said, "Thing is, you're a clerk, and so you should only really be applying for, the only way you're going to get another job here is to apply at that clerical grade."
Yeah.
And I tried to, I just couldn't.
Yeah, couldn't
break in. And so I went and did a evening class in script writing, not because I wanted to be a writer, because I wanted to understand more about script writing.
Yeah.
And I thought actually doing it would be a way to do that. And then the other thing, which you will not know because you're really young, every week, The Guardian, on I think it was a Monday, had a Media Guardian section, and that's where all the jobs were. So everybody would put their advert for whoever they're looking for. So every week I'd go through the Media Guardian and apply for whatever there was. And finally, with all the bits of with all the little bits that I'd sort of managed to accumulate over a couple of years, I finally managed to get a job in development. There you go. So that was a very long story.
No, but I think for our industry, I think a lot of people's story would be like that. You freelance and you are trying to create a network, and a friend of a friend of a friend. It is still like that now. Yeah. I still get messages from, people I work with 10, 15 years ago going, "Oh, I do this now. Don't suppose you know anyone who can help me with it?" And you just think, well, people do pay it forward, So if I help, I'm sure you will help me out if I need to pick up the phone at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
People kind of do. People are quite nice like that. Once you get in, it's just trying to find those people.
It's like trying to get in around the edges.
Yeah. Once you're in, people are quite like, I know so-and-so. Is their email, is their number, whatever. Whereas it's hard to get in once you're in.
Yeah. Although, I was working for an indie, and it was quite an unusual one. It made, making both television, drama, and also films and quite international as well. So I basically got the stuff that nobody else wanted. So I ended up looking after some German television movie co-productions that I can't quite remember how the company got involved with them. That were like
quite full circle after your German cinema epiphany.
It was probably the furthest distance you can imagine from like Wim Wenders to Midnight Flight or whatever it was called, a thriller set overnight in a German airport.
It was destined to a German.
They were quite low rent, and but very proud of them, obviously. And then we made a show, The Famous Five, for ITV, and my boss sort of script edited it, and I went and sort of I was trainee, and I sort of learnt a bit of how to script edit a show. There were bits of film, bits of telly. It was sort of very much what arrived on our desk, really, and where I could see a little opening. And one of the things that I weirdly ended up working on was this series of very low budget films with the New Zealand Film Commission.
I'd be sorry to interrupt. When we were putting your blurb together, I'm like, the New Zealand Film Commission. You're not from New Zealand.
No,
where did that come
not
in?
At all.
Please tell us all about that.
So I kind of got to a point, this is what we were saying before about once you're in, you're in. And the company I worked for was sort of, it was a bit of an outsider company in a way, because it sort of did all sorts of different things. And so it wasn't like working for, like Sister or Left Bank. It was, I think I was there for 5 or 6 years. And I sort of started to think, okay, maybe I need to go and look for something else now. And I just couldn't get to the next level in the UK. I just couldn't. I was applying things from the Media Guardian. Couldn't get another job. For whatever reason, I just wasn't quite working at the right place.
Yeah.
And I had these weird, credits like German TV movie that nobody ever heard of before, odd New Zealand low budget film. Anyway, I went and visited New Zealand because we'd made 3 films by that point, and when I was there, this amazing woman called Ruth Harley, who was ran the New Zealand Film Commission, which is basically like the sort of BFI of New Zealand. It's like the government funding body. And she said, "Why don't you come and be our head of development and exec some stuff for us? Why not come and just do it for a couple of years?"
And they knew you, and you're a known entity over there.
Exactly. So. And I'd been there for a week, and I thought it was quite nice. And
I could live it.
And it was just like at that moment in my life where I really wanted a change.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at the time, this is the moment where I have to decide film or television. And it just felt like a really rogue, random opportunity where, when else am I going to go and do this?
Why not?
So 3 months later, I was in New Zealand.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how long were you there for?
4 years. My eldest daughter was born there. So it was like a massive sort of,
life change.
Yeah, late 20s, early 30s, life-changing thing. And I had this amazing boss who was incredibly empowering and was like, I will back you. And, obviously she kind of taught me, how, the ropes of the place and how to do it. But editorially, it was like, you tell us what you think is great on this slate of 100 projects, and let's build it and let's back it. And it was it was sort of an amazing, really unbelievably lucky moment, an opportunity, and being kind of culturally having to learn about a whole different culture as well, and so just being thrown into the middle of it. And New Zealand is an amazing kind of welcoming country, although it doesn't suffer fools, and so it kept me on my toes. But it just and I think the main thing for me was seeing stuff that I was working on get made, and being able to watch that, and that cycle over and over, and see sort of see what worked and see what didn't work, and why it worked, and just start to kind of get an understanding of what audiences responded to, and also really learn how to work with creatives and what not to do,
Yeah.
and what is useful and what isn't, and when to get out of the way, and when to lean in. And yes, that's my very random career move.
Love that. I love it. And were there any projects, obviously I'm sure you're proud of everything that you've made, but were there any projects while you were at the New Zealand Film Commission and you were like, oh, I'm so happy we got to make that?
I wasn't there when it came out, but I was there when we put Whale Rider into production, which ended up going to the Oscars and stuff, and that's an amazing film.
Yeah.
And so to see a film like that, you know,
from a tiny island,
got kind of reach internationally, and you know, and it's you know, really powerful story set in a Maori community, and it's a sort of coming of age story, and it's very, very kind of, you know, culturally specific, and really, and it sort of leans into mythology, and it just doesn't, you know, some of the amazing things that film can do, and it transports you, and to see audiences, love and embrace that.
Yeah,
they worked on that script for years and years and years, and to see that find its audience was an amazing thing.
Aww,
yeah. And then I came back, and then I didn't have a job again.
Did you feel like you had to start again when you come back? Because like the industry had really moved on.
Yeah, and I mean, 4 years is a while, and people like, even if I had known people forget you, and
people move jobs, and they make so many switches, or they leave the industry and all that kind of stuff. So when you come back, did you come back with a plan to be like, right, I want to be in development, or were you like, I just need to get a job?
I think it was the second.
Okay.
It was like, I need some work, and I, you know, and development was what I'd done, and so I sort of slowly, you know, I did, you know, freelance script reading, I did some script editing, you know, there was Jenny Borgers, who was at the Film Council, as it then was called, who, you know, gave me some bits of work. So it's sort of like patching bits of work together.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, in my whole career, it's the only year I've been freelance, and I absolutely hated it.
Yeah, I did it for 16 years.
I just panicked. I just felt this sense of panic all the time. I said yes to every single job. Yeah. I worked all the hours. I felt, but that wave of anxiety, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I found it unbelievably stressful, and I had very small daughter and another one on the way, you know, so trying to juggle all of that.
It wasn't about you anymore.
Yeah. So it was, and I did that for a year essentially. And then again, pretty sure this was still, I mean, this is all still analog media guide. So I got a job being head of development at Ruby Films, which was Alison Owen's company at the time, and I did that for a year. And then when I was there, this Film 4 head of development job came up, and I didn't know any of them at all. But I had known for years that if I was going to do film, that's where I wanted to be. It was just like, you know, in Film 4 had been through this rocky period. It had been closed down for a bit, and then it had reopened. But, you know, looking at the films that I loved, and the British films that I loved, whether it was, I don't know, Train Spotting, you know, it was they would just they were the place that were making these iconic risk-taking movies.
Exciting.
And again, amazingly sort of managed through my weird CV and hodgepodge of all this kind of slightly random stuff, but I managed to sort of talk my way into it.
And how long were you over at Film 4?
Nearly 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was an amazing time. It was so Tessa Ross took over Film 4. It'd been closed down, and then it reopened, and she was the sort of person at the helm. It was really small, and she'd been going a year, and so I joined a year into that. And really, those 10 years were a time where, you know, essentially that team remained relatively static, you know, and it was, you know, we really knew each other incredibly well, and it was being there for that long meant that, you know, people who were in development. So I started off as head of development, and people who we sort of kicked off into development or were doing short films with at the beginning of my time there were then making their first films and then their second films, and just watching the progression of those amazing,
nurturing them.
Yeah, those amazing writers and directors over that time. It was a very it was a very public service place. So, when we were there, particularly in the first few years, it was all about, we're doing it for the work. We're not doing it to be commercially wildly successful. That sort of shifted, but particularly at the beginning, it was about, we're doing it for the work, and that meant that there was a real environment of risk taking and of just backing voices, and also having that ability to I looked after the short films for a while there, and so being able to kind of build a slate of short films. And then, and then after a few years, I took over from a fantastic friend of mine, Peter Carlton, who now co-runs Warp Films, to look after the low budget and sort of new talent films. And I was sort of really amazingly left to my own devices. Yeah. And basically that was my slate. And I could, and obviously I couldn't sign off on fully backing the movies, but I was given a lot of rope.
Freedom,
and it was exhilarating and terrifying all at the same time.
And are there any projects that we would know that you were a part of during that time?
Well, I guess it was I don't know. And I look back, I think of it as it does feel like a bit of a golden period. There were just some amazing writers and directors coming through at the time. So we worked on a few Ben Wheatley projects. So we did Kill List. That was my first film with Ben.
Crazy film.
Yeah, that was absolutely... I actually thought I was going to get sacked over that film.
So that film I remember quite well because I was with an ex-partner and he told me it was a comedy. Because I only really watch comedies.
So sorry.
And he went, you were like, you'll find this hilarious. So I was like, okay. I was terrified by the end of it. I was like, when's the funny? And he was like, yeah, well, you wouldn't have watched it if it's not what it really was.
I don't think anyone would. I mean,
no.
We coined this phrase, the Kill List stare. Like audiences would come out and they were just staring in sort of horror at what they'd just witnessed. And the first time I watched a cut of it, I was just like, I am going to lose my job over this. There is no two ways about it. And I thought it was both brilliant and kind of like, oh my God, what have we done? And we launched it. We went to South by Southwest with it, which we'd never been to before, and we were really excited. Like, oh my God, it's going to South by. That's it's so exciting. And we turned up, and it was screening at like midnight in this cinema in what essentially was a mall car park. And I was just, oh my God, we've got Film 4 to pay for us to come all the way over here to do this premiere, which is essentially in a mall car park at midnight.
Kind of fits though.
It totally fitted, and we and it was part of Fantastic Fest, and so we got in. And the first thing they do is they do this kind of chugging competition, and so they had Ben Wheatley up there, and it was Tim League who ran Fantastic Fest. And they were chugging, I think it was disgusting. It was like liquidized chili or something. I have no idea what they were doing.
Why?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
So random.
And the cinema was not full. And anybody who was there was, pretty pissed. And we were going, oh my God, I can't believe that we've persuaded everyone that this was like a really big deal, and here we are in a mall car park with people chugging, and then during the screening, half the audience fell asleep because it was really late, and there was quite a lot of beer, and then the other half were like, it finished and it was just like silence, and everyone was just staring at the screen in sort of horror, and we were just like, this is a disaster. And then we went and had some drinks afterwards in the cinema, and then we were looking at I think they were blackberries at the time, and the bloggers started blogging about it, and it was like all of those kind of, I don't know, like Bloody Disgusting, and the sort of the genre aficionados started to write about it, and it was like overnight it was something like, oh wow,
there was a buzz.
There was a buzz, and it felt like there may have only been 25 people still awake by the end of that screening, but they were the right 25 people, and so to kind of go through that sort of that experience with that film and realise that. Yeah, and just kind of go, okay, it just had this impact, and almost immediately, and just felt, it was exciting and terrifying all in one go. So anyway, that was one.
Just one.
There was Tyrannosaur, Paddy Considine's first film, which was amazing. That we took that to Sundance, and that was my first time at Sundance, and I went to Sundance and felt like it was kind of like a spiritual home or something.
I just felt really like you needed to be there.
Yeah, totally. So that was
nice.
So that was amazing, and that won some awards then. And then amazing, this beautiful film called Selfish Giant, Chloe Bernard's film that went to Cannes, and it was quite a lot of street casting, and just like taking it to, it's one of the sidebar competitions, Directors Fortnight, but taking it to that, and then seeing the kids and their mums and dads and family people. In that cinema, like tears down their faces as it got a standing ovation. That was a pretty amazing, powerful thing, and that film is so truthful and authentic and beautiful, and I think Chloe's a genius. David Mackenzie's film Starred Up.
I love that film.
And that was, that was a film which was, nobody wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was, it was written by a prison psychiatrist who'd run these kind of therapy groups, and again, it had that sort of smell of authenticity about it.
And it's such a great a different take on a prison drama.
Absolutely.
Which I don't think we've ever seen before.
No.
Or since.
No.
Jack O'Connell was.
Yeah, and he had done Skins, but that was it. And David just knew that he was the right guy. And the way that David wanted to work was he just wanted to go fast, and so shot it really quickly, and then had lots of different experiences on other films, but it was like I just want to move. I want to create a momentum, and I want to keep going. So if you're going to come to my edit, you have to come. Give me your notes. I'll take your notes. I'll turn it around. You can watch it again, but it's going to move, and so keep up. Yeah. And it was a brilliant experience in terms of seeing that very specific creative process up close.
Yeah.
And knowing there was something special and powerful about it.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to get the money for them to get the money together.
It feels like a real dynasty of incredible UK filmmakers that you got to work with at the beginning.
It really was actually. It was what else did we do? Barbarian Sound Studio, Peter Strickland's film, which is bananas. But I always went for I felt I was really it was all about the strong voices and the really kind of the big visions, and there was quite often it was people who'd made something outside of the system first. So Ben had made a really low budget film himself, and Peter Strickland had made a really low budget film himself first, but Clio had made a sort of partial sort of documentary sort of lip sync film called The Arbor. So people who were sort of already working outside of the system.
Yeah, they were just wanted to create stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was an amazing time, and having that remit to do that was it will never happen again.
No, I know, and that's what makes me really sad, because it's like that film, we love Film 4, we've got a couple of projects with them now, and I just think they are your risk takers. They are your go-to if you want to make some authentic British films. That's who you go to. But it is harder. I wasn't making films then. I was just starting to edge into the industry. But it wouldn't have been lovely to be making films with you there. When you were doing things really outside the box.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think, I think like Eva Yates, who's now looks after BBC Film, she was there then. She was she was Tessa's assistant, and then moved over into development. So she comes from that sort of school as well.
Yeah.
And Rose Garnett, who was there before, she was there.
Yeah.
So it, I do think there are people, who really do.
They do get it.
And sort of, it's like you're in it for the long game.
Yeah.
You're in it to do. Before I got to film for, they'd already backed Martin McDonagh to do his short film, and then we did In Bruges, and then what was it? Oh, I've forgotten. 7 Psychopaths, and and then they ultimately did 3 Billboards, and so you can see, and when you start to see those stories happening, that's when you kind of feel, okay, I'm in a place that really is all about creative growth.
Yeah. Wow. You stayed there for 10 years?
Yeah, I think just under
10 years. And then did you feel like it was your time to move on? Did you just want to change? Did you feel like you'd done everything you could do there, or were you headhunted? Like, what was the reason for the move?
I really felt that in order to sort of progress at all, what I really wanted to do was produce. I didn't necessarily want to be a producer forever, but I just felt that having been on the commissioning side and being close to the process, I just wanted to be inside the process. And this opportunity came up. So one of the other films that I think of incredibly fondly is a film called The Imposter, and I got to know Bart Layton and who directed it, and Dimitri Doganis who produced it, and they had a very, very successful factual television company called Raw, and they said, we want to set up a sort of drama, film and drama arm. Do you want to come and do it? And so I really loved the way that they worked, and I loved their sort of energy, and The Imposter, again has that sort of, it's really playful in terms of how it takes genre and sort of spins genre, and works with documentary, but also works with drama, and works with kind of, works with storytelling structures in a really, really innovative way. And so anyway, so I took the plunge to go and work with an indie in production, and sort of built a film slate and a bit of a television slate. And it was a real baptism of fire. Yeah, it was like,
it's hard, isn't it?
It's so hard. Oh my God!
I know I'm always emailing you and like, help me.
And it was also what I found I didn't expect, because I had worked in indie before, but I had to completely change the way that I used my energy at work. And so when you're in commissioning, it's not like you are receiving all the time. You're going out and you are having conversations, and you are looking and finding, but your diary is full, because there are always meetings to be had and always things to be done, and there is, you've got to make, and so that you're always making something, and then suddenly you go, you are sitting at a desk and there is nothing on your slate, and there is nothing in your diary, and you have to start to
create that from nothing.
Push, and that learning how to do that, and how to build my own momentum it took a real kind of rethink about everything about the way I worked.
But do you think obviously your previous jobs had helped, because you had a network, you had people that you knew you could call upon for meetings and script ideas and
writers I had great relationships with, and filmmakers, and people I really knew I wanted to work with, and absolutely, I couldn't have done it from. I don't know how people just go and start. I had had a lot of people I knew already, and I also knew how. I knew how film worked, and so I understood how, the inner workings and how decisions get made in some of those places. So I was able to use that knowledge to kind of, think about what kinds of projects are we developing, and then how are we going to put it together. And it didn't make it any easier, frankly.
I like that you also found it tricky, because if you're like, it was really easy, Sam, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it is the hardest job. I mean, I think coming out, ending up going back into commissioning, which I wasn't necessarily setting out to do, but I just feel I have a completely different understanding of what producers do and how they do it and how.
No, and I'll be honest, like I know quite a few commissioners now. Out of everybody I know, I probably have the longest conversations with you about what's going to work, why doesn't this work, or and I think that makes sense now that you went and you had a go as a producer and you did it for a time, because I feel like you're speaking my language when you're answering my questions.
Right.
Whereas sometimes some commissioners, I'm like, I don't know what that means.
I just think that I have to work it out,
Yeah.
I have to kind of understand why are we doing these things and what is the sort of, what is the logic behind it?
Absolutely.
And that's the only way I can understand it. So then I can then translate it to people. And it's only if you understand why, we kind of issue these sort of, strategies.
Yeah.
It's only if you really understand them that you can then start to really think your way into them. And
Absolutely.
So I think part of it is being on that other side and going, why do you want this? I don't understand why you suddenly saying that you want a thriller set in Thailand. What is behind that? If I just understood, then maybe I could build it. But yeah.
No. And then from Raw, did you go to Sky from Raw?
So I was at Raw for I can't remember now. Everything's dissolved into one. Maybe like 6 years, and we made we made some films there. Made American Animals. Yeah. So that was wild. Working with a brilliant group of people. I'd never worked in America before. Yeah. So understanding how to make a film in America, how to understand the system.
That's tricky.
Did that one, then did another film called Dream Horse, which was again based on true story, and had the misfortune of Dream Horse being released into cinemas in the UK, and quite a big release. In I think the second week of April 2020.
Oh well, never mind.
It did release about a year and a bit later, it was that the heartbreak,
ridiculous time. Yeah.
So I then worked in another indie for a couple of years, called Ink Factory, where one of the things we did during COVID was we made the Hindi version of The Night Manager. Okay. In Hindi.
Wow.
And
so you got a history of taking risks.
Yeah, that was, it was already happening. I can't claim much credit, but I did work on it with my colleagues, and sort of, again, it was like learning an entirely new system. Yeah. And
why?
Yeah.
Why Hindi?
Well, because it's a huge industry. Disney Hotstar out there, there was a real appetite for it. And also because the British American version just doesn't really travel into that market. So you're sort of
it's a big market
to start again with. It was COVID, so we had one colleague who went and was there, and then the rest of us were mainly here, doing it at arm's length. And that must
have been hard.
Yeah, there was lots of time in quarantine, and my colleague spent a lot of time in her hotel room quarantining. So yes, I have always done
I love that.
The unusual, difficult things. I don't think I've made it very easy for myself.
But you did it. You continue to get risky things made, and changing formats and putting yourself out there. I think it's incredible. It's so good. So then, are we at Sky now?
Yes, finally. Sorry, I told you it was going to take a long time. So this opportunity to go to Sky came up, and to work in the television drama space, scripted space, and I think. I was really excited about the ambition. Megan Livers and the team there really wanted to embrace, premium television. We don't make loads, but what we make is really sort of distinctive. Yeah. It's, got to find its audience and reach its audience, but it has to push through everything else to do that. And I think the sort of looking, the tradition of HBO on Sky Atlantic as well, and aspiring to that kind of quality level just felt really exciting. And I think when I try and rationalise my career, post-rationalise, I think probably the reason I chose film in the first place, and the reason I then started shifting over to television, it was just like following the brilliant storytellers and the brilliant filmmakers, and where is the most exciting work happening, and that felt to me that, moving into television at that moment, sort of a few years ago, and then with Sky about 2.5 years ago, and going to a place that had this real big, cinematic ambition for what it was. It just felt like it made sense to me in terms of what my experience had been and what my tastes were.
And I suppose to give TV a go as well, like you spend so much time in the film space. I know you did a bit of TV at Raw, but I think you've primarily been in film. So it was how can I make cinema in TV?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And sort of use some different muscles and learn stuff again. And, not that I've never stopped learning, but learn something else. My friend Peter Carlton, who I met at Film 4, we always used to joke about how did they let us? How come they let us in here? How did we get in? It's like
we say that all the time.
it's like it's this great big kind of establishment, and we felt like we went round the back and Gemma opened a toilet window and climbed through. And will anybody ever notice that and throw us out again? And I kind of feel like that again now.
And then. So I want to ask you more about kind of commissioning now at Sky, and obviously there's only say what you can talk about, but are there any stories that you're just like, oh, we're desperate and nobody's making these anymore, or are there any genres that you're like, Sky really want to make but you're not? Or
currently we're really desperate for some fun because we've got a brilliant lineup of really, really distinctive dramas coming, and what we try and do, we're making 6 to 8 dramas a year, which is not a huge slate. No. And so within that, each one has to feel really distinctive and really different to the others. And one of our big one of the big challenges for all of us at the moment is, there was so much content, is like, how can you push through? How can you push through and get to that audience and present them with something they absolutely have to see because they haven't quite seen anything like that before. A lot of that is about voice. It's about creative ambition. It's about offering something that feels, it brings both kind of authenticity and scale at the same time. But and then within that, and I think we've talked quite a lot recently about sort of hope and redemption. That even in even when you're telling a story that is walks to darker places, how do you come out as an audience, as a viewer at the other end, feeling a sense of redemption and a sense of emotional catharsis and but also on the other side, how can we make, we all love shows that do make us feel really joyful and uplifted, and so how can we do that? How can we have some fun as well? And I think that area is because also what we're doing is the dramas we're making, we also want them to have complexity. We want them to have big emotional stakes, and that could be sort of life and death, or it could be kind of emotional life and death as well. It could be, will anybody recognise me for who I am, or will I end up with the right person? But but it has to feel like huge, and you have to feel absolutely invested and wanting to go on that journey. And I think finding your way through that in something that feels fun and propulsive is a really challenging thing. So I think that is an area that we're constantly looking at.
I'm gonna write down.
A project. And then I think the other thing is, how do we make precinct dramas? So drama that essentially sits in a similar world, whether it's an office or a police station or a hospital, or whatever it is, that you feel you can come back to time and time again, and you love being with those characters and you want to be with them, and you are going on a ride with them, in a way that you can't stop watching, and that you need to,
you want to binge watch,
you want to be in the middle of it. You are so excited both by by those character journeys and by the sort of story motor. It feels like it's your new favorite show. But how can we make those in a way that and not being made on the other channels.
Yeah.
You know, BBC, ITV make amazing cop shows, and so how can we do something? But essentially, our job is we have to make drama that is worth paying for, because we're a pay platform.
Yeah.
And so why should people pay to come and watch this on our platform? And so those shows in that area, are also really hard nuts to crack, because we're always looking for something that feels extra, that feels attention grabbing, alongside that amazing complex character work and that voice, that point of view from the writer brings.
Wow, that's a big ask.
Yeah. So those, please.
Really trying. Are there any scripts that you passed on that you kick yourself?
Oh, I have no doubt there are. I think I might have wiped them from my memory. I feel like the pain of doing that is so huge that there are things that I haven't got. Like, competitive situations where really, really wanted something and they've gone elsewhere.
Oh, okay.
The fools. But I think when you're doing this job, one of the things I'm most aware of is if I read a script on my way home from the office on the train, and the train's running late and it's raining, I'm in a really bad mood, and I'm tired, and I'm not giving a fair read to something, and so that sort of that subjectivity you bring to your reads is, and I'm always really aware of that layer that And quite often, if I do read something, I try not to read very much at that time, because I know that where I am in terms of being tired. But I think that you do bring subjectivity, and you do bring yourself to your reads, and so it's impossible. It's impossible to catch everything. I like to think that there are a few of those that I have read late at night where and I've gone, oh my God, this is amazing, I can't stop reading. Then I really, really know that it's something special. But actually, I try and catch myself when I'm doing that, because I'm not being fair to the work, but also I'm just gonna miss stuff. So there are definitely things that I've missed, but I do think I might have, to save myself from the pain of
I think that's
remembering
sensible.
it. I think I've wiped them.
What do you think makes a really good commissioner?
Oh, good question. I'd like someone else to tell me that, actually. I think for me, anyway, I feel like, when there's a project that I'm working on, I sort of want to climb inside the ambition of it and the vision for it. And I want to know that we're all trying to build the same thing, because so many times you're not, and that never works. And so trying to build it right from the start is something that I kind of try and repeat to myself. And it's got to feel, when you're being really honest with yourself and with the team, are we all trying to tell the same story? And are we all coming from the same starting point? And do I really understand the vision of the creative vision behind this? And if I do, can I help nurture it? Can I help support it? Am I the right person? Am I the right person? So I think that is unbelievably important, to really know that you're trying to achieve the same thing. You've got to try and build trust. Creativity is a very personal and very vulnerable place, and you want to encourage the best work and the most risk-taking work. You need to feel like you are building a nurturing environment where teams feel like they can trust you, and I think that you need to be able to be transparent, and you need to be honest and straight, and because decisions don't always go the right way, or the way that a team would hope. Before I started at Sky, I read quite a lot of books about great television shows, and I'm nerdy. I love those books that describe either kind of huge disasters or amazing achievements. But anyway, I was reading about I can't remember who it was at HBO was saying they wanted their team that even when you turn stuff down and say no, people still want to come back and make their next thing with you. And so that sort of being straight, showing up, having the difficult conversations, feels incredibly important and really hard. I think the other thing, for me is I need to be able to sort of zoom in and zoom out. So I need to be able to look at the whole slate and think about what have we got, what haven't we got, how does this new project sit in there? Just because I love it doesn't mean that it's right.
Yeah.
And also be able to go into an edit and be really, really specific at the right moment, but not overload with detail.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is about asking the right questions at the right time. I'm not saying that I do all of this. I just think this is what
I'm sure you
a
do.
brilliant commissioning person
sure
would
you
do.
do.
So I think it's some of those different skills.
Brilliant. And then in a world of IPs, big franchises, and being risk averse, how do you champion originality?
I think it keeps coming back to those creative voices, and I think that my remit at Sky is, and our remit as a team is to build like premium dramas. I said that it for our customers, it's worth them paying for, and so they have to stand out. And then you sort of start to think about how do we stand out, and what is it about these stories that feel different? And I think it keeps coming back to the point of view of the writer, what, the characters that they're creating, why they want to tell their stories, what the point of view is of those stories, and the specificity of those journeys that they want to take the audience on. And we're trying to kind of build a slate that has real range, both in terms of, budget and in terms of genre and in terms of experience for the audience. And so, when I think of some of the stuff that we've got coming up, on the one hand, we've got, the Day of the Jackal last year. We are making season 2, and that is, that grew huge audiences for us because it was brilliantly, beautifully made, but it had this enigmatic character at the heart of it who you unexpectedly were drawn to and you were fascinated by, and even for people who had never heard of the book or the film before, there was something about Eddie's performance that meant you could not take your eyes off it, and it was at the highest production values, and it had a real cinematic eye, but it was really that character that you were absolutely compelled by. And then at the other end of the scale, we've got a show like The Death of Bonnie Munro coming up, from a book by Nick Cave. There is a Nick Cave theme that runs through my entire career. So I actually worked on a version of this, an film adaptation of this when I was at Film 4, which didn't quite happen, and then arrived at Sky, and there it was sitting on the slate, and it's like, oh my God, it's here. And but The Death of Bonnie Munro is a much smaller scale show in terms of its set in and around Brighton, but it has such a specific voice. It is looking at toxic masculinity in a really provocative way that I haven't quite seen done before. Pete Jackson is this incredible writer who brings humanity and love into what might otherwise be quite a dark story. You've got this incredible performance by Matt Smith, who was so committed to this role. It's a real passion project, and then within that you've got Isabel Eklov, the director, who brought a very specific point of view again onto telling this story. It felt really important to us to have a female, go through a female lens to tell this story. So and it just feels like there is a real difference in terms of the ambition for a show like that, and to be able to sort of take a risk in to back something like that and have the right set of expectations around it. And then we've got this show called Under Salt Marsh, which is it's an investigative crime thriller set in a very, very specific environment. It's a really small community in North Wales, and that is written and directed a woman called Claire Oakley. And Claire has never written for television before. She comes from low budget film, but she had this fully fully realised vision of this story, these characters, this community, and essentially this community is sort of sitting on the edge of the edge between land and sea. It's a isolated community at the end of a causeway, and there is a past case and a present case that brings back a detective played by Rafe Spall to this community to work with this woman who used to be a detective played by Kelly Riley, and they have this kind of deeply fractious relationship. Something terrible happened in the past, and they have to basically solve this crime as the storm of the century is coming at them from sea, and the whole place might be is at risk of flooding, and that. So you've got big cinematic stakes, but also within that, this beautifully, culturally, specifically written community and incredible sense of place, and people, very specific characters who choose to live in this place and why they choose to live there. And there's an amazing story of community kind of coming through that. So it's taking the vehicle of a really accessible genre, but it's bringing, Claire's voice and heart into the middle of that and doing something very, very specific within it. So I really think that you can use, you can use genre, you can use archetypes, you can use the kinds of stories that we all love to hear, but then you can imbue them with something that is incredibly specific and original, and it feels like something you've never quite seen before.
Yeah, I mean, all sounds amazing. Sounds, again, more risks being taken.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think for someone like Claire, for instance, or Isabella, it's about working with the producer to build that sort of that nurturing environment, that supportive environment, put the scaffolding around them to set them up to succeed.
And when that one came your way, was that one that you were like, I have to make this?
They'd written a pilot script and they had a series document, and I read it and the voice just jumped off the page. Yeah, it was just you could really, really see it and feel it, and it just felt different. And I knew, I had in my head that we would love to find a kind of Mayor of Easttown type piece that, and again, it's that differentiation for Sky between a brilliant ITV, BBC, sort of detective-driven show, and what can we do to elevate that and to make something a bit different and give it a bit of scale, and just so again, it's like on that basic level, it's worth paying for. For me, it just jumped off the page, and then we we started to talk about it and work on it and build it out from there. But yeah, it was that, and Claire just knew what she wanted to do, and it was one of those ones where again, it's like, do we all share the same vision? And it was so clear what she wanted to do. It was a really easy decision to kind of go, okay, we get it, and we want to do it, and we want to do it, with you and build it with you to be the best it possibly can be.
Sounds incredible. Can't wait. Does that come out?
Sort of early next year.
Brilliant. And then, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I don't remember who said this to me, or whether it was a number of people, but trust your gut. And I think it's really, really hard to tune into your gut, to properly go through the layers of, what other people think I should do, or self-doubt, or I must be wrong, I can't possibly say this, but go to that sort of, that emotional gut instinct. I think when I look, when you sit in an edit and I suddenly realised that I've been staring out the window for 5 minutes thinking about what I'm having for tea. It's like there is something wrong in this show, and I don't know what's happened here, but I know that I wasn't paying attention. So why? And and be curious to ask why was I bored then, or I think I should have been crying then. I mean, I'm a very emotional person, and so if anyone's going to cry, I'm going to cry. So if I'm not crying, why aren't I crying? And and then be able to sort of and then be able to bring some of those analytical tools. I think trusting your gut, whether it's about decisions you're making in your career. I mean, and when you've got kind of those voices going, are you sure about this? And when you're squishing them down and ignoring them, and being able to listen to all of that is really tough. But I think
I completely agree, and that's what we do as well. We will only do a project if both Phil and I are like, hell yeah. We have to make this. No one else can make this.
Yeah.
But if one of us has got doubts, it's like, well, no, because we both need to make it from like our first, maybe second read if I'm in a bad mood and it's raining.
Yeah.
But I completely agree.
I think, actually, just what you were saying there. Another thing that I remember, my boss in New Zealand, she always used to say, "Would you die in a ditch for it?"
Yeah.
And it's like, if I'm not going to die in a ditch for it, then I shouldn't be backing it.
Yeah. I completely agree. And yeah, like I say, we're exactly the same. I'm going to ask you our final question, and I would love to know, what is a rogue film or TV choice that we wouldn't expect you to love?
You said when we were talking about it earlier that it was about something that I sort of return to time and time again. Yeah. The cool answer.
No cool people allowed. Sorry.
When I was in my 20s, I did used to have Mean Streets on VHS, and when we came in from the pub, we used to put Mean Streets on. We never used to get further than the bar scene, but I always loved the bar scene. So the bar scene in Mean Streets with "Be My Baby" and that amazing kind of woozy camera work is Harvey Keitel walks into the bar. That's one of the things I used to have on repeat a lot. The uncool answer is in my dotage. The show I really love is Strictly.
Wow. I think you always know Christmas is coming when Strictly starts. You do.
And it's like, it is. And it's like, and you know, that excitement as you're kind of building up to that first episode. And I just, it makes me laugh and it makes me cry. Every year, I'm just a massive sucker for it.
And I think the old school, like, glitz and glam and the event of it all is so lovely, isn't it? I remember I had some friends who worked in the production team, and they'd all get free spray tans every weekend from Strictly. I was like, I'd save a fortune if I worked on that.
Amazing. Yeah.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for coming to chat with me today. This has been brilliant. I feel like we could have sat here all night, but I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, really lovely to see you.